Many interesting things were learned last time in Chapter 4 of A Space for the Unbound. We learned that Atma was just a creation of Raya's imagination, as the real Atma actually did drown in the river in the game's prologue. We also learned that Raya and Nirmala are the same person, just two halves of the same whole. While Chapter 4 ended on an emotional note, it would turn out to be nowhere near as emotional as Chapter 5 would be. The game is bringing an end to its story here, and it's going to pull at every heartstring you have. So, without further ado, here's what happens in Chapters 5 and 6 of A Space for the Unbound. Chapter 5 starts off with Atma questioning the point of everything, with the realization that he is not real, and that he is based off of a version of himself that drowned in a river. We continue to fall into a void, but we see Bosk coming to save us. Bosk tells us that he serves the princess, and that she is waiting for us in the old headquarters. We enter the old headquarters and find Nirmala sitting down at the table asking us to join her. As we start speaking to Nirmala, we learn that she is not doing well, but Nirmala says not to worry about it for now. This is when we can start questioning Bosk and Nirmala about everything going on and obtain some more answers to our many questions. Not many answers though are given, as the conversation between Atma and Nirmala is mostly just centered around the lore of Nirmala's fairy tale, even though it's kind of being spoken as a metaphor for what's going on, but not too much is really given here. One thing we do learn though, is that the reason why Nirmala was turning people into beasts was because she wanted Raya to acknowledge her and to love her again, like she used to. Now that we know we exist in a fairy tale, I feel like the lore of the fairy tale Nirmala is writing isn't as important anymore, now that we know that we are living in a figment of Raya's dreams. Bosk though, states that everyone in the world isn't real, they're all just figments of Raya's memories, meant to help her hide from reality, something she has become detached from. It is then revealed to us that Raya is using the last of her strength to barricade herself from the truth and from reality, and that if we do not do something to help her out, she will be trapped for all eternity. I have a feeling that they're trying to say Raya will die if she does not face herself, but the game never outright says it, but I feel like it's heavily implied here. Just as we explained to Bosk and Nirmala that we want to save Raya, every flower starts to wither away and Nirmala passes out. Before she passes out though, she tells us to find Raya and bring her back to her. We can exit the special headquarters with Bosk and stumble onto a rift. And once again, it's time to do another rift dive and save Raya. However, the rift dive is not opening properly, as the magic wand broke for some reason. So Bosk steps in and helps us to force it open. The rift dive starts with us waking up in the classroom again, for old time's sake. We step outside and realize that we're in some weird dimension and notice Admiral standing in our path. Admiral starts yelling at us that we turned on Raya and betrayed her, like everyone else. Admiral states that Raya is happy living in this fantasy world and that we should listen to her and try not to bring her out of it. Admiral says that if we really love her, we'll do as she says and play the role that she was giving us. This, in turn, starts the Admiral boss fight. At least I wish I could say that it's a boss fight. All we do is just some inputs and the fight automatically ends after one round. Yeah, the Admiral fight was scripted to only last a few seconds. Honestly, it's pretty disappointing. Things get interesting though, as once Admiral goes for a strike, Bosk turns up and comes to our aid. He says that he will hold off Admiral while we go after Raya. This starts the Bosk versus Admiral fight, which actually goes on in the background as you're playing through this part of the chapter. Honestly, it's pretty cool. You can see a nice little extra detail being added to this game. You can definitely see the passion in this game from the creators as they made it. That's for sure. As soon as we continue onwards, we stumble across Dark Atma. Or I guess I should say Dark Atmas, as there's many of them that we have to fight. Honestly, I don't understand much of this. The fights just exist really to pad the game time, it feels like. Like, you only hit them once and block them once, and then the fight just ends, and you move on to the next one. You progress to fight 2 Dark Atmas, then 3, then 4, and it just keeps climbing without really going anywhere. It's not a hard fight by any means. No fight in this game is really challenging, but nothing really seems meaningful about these fights. You know what I mean? You could take the Dark Atma fights out of this section of the game and nothing would change at all. After this, we fight the main Dark Atma, who is probably the worst boss fight in the entire game. You defeat him by doing absolutely nothing but blocking. If you hit him 3 times, you lose and have to start again. Ask me how I know that. All you do is block his attacks as many times as he attacks, and do absolutely nothing when you have the chance to attack him. Eventually he drops his guard and we can attack and defeat him. But that was a really bad boss fight in my opinion. One thing that's interesting here is that Atma tells Dark Atma that if Raya isn't saved and is allowed to live in this false reality, then her body will fade away in the real world. I feel like that it's pretty safe to say now that Raya is on the verge of death in the real world, but there's nothing concrete to answer that question, but I feel like it's heavily implied. And there is, I think, a fairly solid answer to this, but that's later in the game, and I will get to that here in a little bit. As we move past Dark Atma, we find that Bossk and Admiral have beaten each other into submission, caught in a stalemate over their ideas on who is right and what is best for Raya. They begin talking to one another over the past. Admiral states that Bossk should have never left Raya when she needed him the most, but Bossk states that he was a fragment of her past, as Admiral should be, and that they can't keep haunting her like this. Admiral still refuses to accept things for how they are, but her and Bossk are too tired to fight any longer. They agreed to share one last meal together and ask Atma to find them some food. Bossk and Admiral agreed to share a meal together and put their differences aside. Admiral finally sees that Bossk and Atma really do want what is best for Raya, and that she cannot be allowed to exist in this fantasy all on her own, even if it's miles better than what reality has to offer Raya. Admiral gives us a key, saying it'll be helpful for us in the future, and allows us to pass by on the promise that we save Raya and keep her safe. We agree and press onwards as Admiral and Bossk fade away. We walk into the next area and find Raya. Well, sort of. She is now this big blue version of herself. Raya says that now we can finally be together forever in each other's arms, and that nobody can interfere now. Atma tells Raya though that this isn't right and she needs to be reunited with Nirmala. Raya refuses to leave, and this starts what you might call the final boss fight of the game. Raya. This fight plays out the same as Dark Atma, where the only thing you do here is defend against her attacks, which I will point out are only flicks right now. Like, she's just a giant version of herself, and the only thing she does is flick at us. She does also call objects to fall from the sky, and she does a smash attack with her fist to cause these like crystal things to shoot out of the ground, but nothing even remotely close to what you'd expect from a boss fight with a giant version of someone. As the fight goes on, Raya thinks that we just need to be convinced about the world's beauty, so she moves the fight onto the bridge back in the town with fireworks going on. I point out in stream that this fight gives me Doki Doki Literature Club vibes, the part of the game where you're alone in the void with Monica as reality falls apart around you. That's what this reminds me of. I feel like Raya and Monica would be great friends if they were around each other. Anyways, when Raya sees that the fireworks aren't working, she brings the fight back to the random dimension it started in. Raya tries convincing us to stay here because we can have whatever we want in her reality, and that we should try to have a little fun. But our boy Atma stands his ground and refuses to accept her deal. When that doesn't work, Raya moves the fight to Cat Wonderland, where all the cats beg us to stay and play with them. Then they become sad when Atma refuses to stay. Kinda heartbreaking to me. I love cats and hate seeing cats sad, even when I know that they're in a video game and not real. She also summons the video game girl from Future Fighter and makes us fight her, so at least we get to throw hands for a little bit, I guess. When that doesn't convince Atma, she brings the fight back once again to the random dimension. I don't know what to call this place exactly, so I'm just gonna keep calling it the random dimension. The dimension where things just randomly fall from the sky for no reason. I would also like to point out here that the boss music is really good. This game has some secret bangers in it, I'm not even gonna lie. As the fight goes on, Raya states that next time she'll be sure to make the next Atma the right one. Honestly, kinda creepy. However, it does open the idea that Raya made our Atma this way because she wanted to escape this reality that she made for herself. That there was a part of Raya that wants to live in reality and live a normal life. Let me know your thoughts on that down below though. Raya uses her power once again to end the fight and bring us back into the school. The school that isn't destroyed by a plane or some dimensional forces. Raya states that she always wished that she could be here with Atma to help her get through the pain and loneliness, and that she wanted to be together forever. Raya then asks us if we want the same thing, but before we can answer, she uses her power on us to force the answer she wants to hear out of us. We fight and resist, saying what she wants to hear, and tell her that we cannot stay here. Raya says that all she wants is her happy ending, and accuses us of thinking that she's a freak. We are warped back to the random dimension, and Raya is big again. She says that all she wanted was a happy ending for us, and all she wants is our company. Atma tells her that she deserves so much more than just some manufactured happy ending. She tries to force us to stay here forever with her, but little does Raya know that I'm a professional button masher and am easily able to break free from her grasp. Raya then starts to exclaim that everyone really hates her and that we don't even want to be with her anymore. Raya now just wants to be alone. Her trauma is starting to haunt her even in this fake dimension she made for herself. Raya then becomes trapped in her own trauma and starts to see and hear things from her past that scared her into this reality to begin with. The boss fight resumes. This time Raya actually starts throwing hands at us. Every time we block her attacks, something new from her past turns up to haunt her, hurting Raya more and more. We try telling Raya that none of this is real and that she needs to snap out of it, but she doesn't listen. Once this fight goes on for a few more rounds, Raya explains that she worked so hard trying to become the perfect version of herself. Someone that her parents and friends want her to be, but she doesn't even know who she is at all. We start to remind Raya that she is Nirmala, and that snaps us out of the fight and into a new little memory/reality. We end up running through the void for a while, all while listening to some of the horrible things people have said to Raya over the course of her life. As we are walking through the endless void, we hear Nirmala's voice telling us to open the magic red book. This guides us to Raya, who is still big but just laying on the ground in the void. This leads us to doing another space dive on Raya. So let me get this straight. First, we did a space dive on Raya in the school when she passed out from using her own power. We then go and do another rift dive within the space dive and help bring Raya back to Nirmala. But now, within the rift dive, within the space dive, we do another space dive inside another Raya to help her past her own fears. Look, I get the story behind all of this, but this is really confusing to follow at times. Like, a space dive within a space dive is pretty confusing considering what a space dive is. I guess we are just going deeper into Raya's heart, which makes sense. It just gets confusing to follow at times. Inside this new space dive deeper into Raya, we find ourselves outside of Nirmala's or Raya's house. We enter the house and make our way upstairs to Raya's room. She has a really nice house, by the way. We find Raya, but she wants nothing to do with us and uses her power to kick us out. We aren't giving up that easily though, as we enter the house again and make our way through it. We hear old conversations between Raya's mother and people associated with her, talking about things like school and how well she's performing and adjusting, or I guess how poorly she's performing at that time. We also learn here that Raya's full name is Raya Fitri Nirmala. I pointed out in the last episode that Raya's first name is Raya and her last name was Nirmala, but now we know her full name. What is interesting here though is that a teacher asks Raya's mother if everything is alright in Raya's personal life, but instead of letting the teacher know that things are tough on Raya at home and that people should be a little more patient with her, she says that everything is normal. I know that the mother didn't know about the bullying, as Raya never mentioned it to her, but her mother should have at least said that Raya is having some struggles in her home life, or even in her personal life. She doesn't even have to specify. At least that's my opinion on the topic. We make our way back up to Raya's room, but the door is locked, so we use the key that Admiral gave us to enter the room. We find Raya sitting on her bed, head hung low. We tell her that everyone is worried about her, but she responds that she doesn't care if she hurts herself. She says that she's tried being kind to herself over and over again, but nothing fills the void. Raya uses her power once again to teleport us outside of the house, but we're not giving up that easily. Still, we make our way through the house again, hearing more memories of her parents, including how they have the expectation on Raya that one day she'll be able to take care of her family, which is a massive expectation to put on a child of any age. There are also 3 notices of warnings for late loan payments on the walls, showing the financial stress that Raya's family was experiencing at the time. We go up to Raya's room, but it's locked with a code this time. We solve the code by finding the dates associated with each late payment letter and the drawings on them and matching them up to the drawing on each calendar. We enter the code and enter Raya's room again. We find Raya laying down on her bed. We ask her what she wants, and she says that all she wants is to be alone. She wants everything to go away and that she just can't do it anymore. She just wants to sleep forever. Raya calls Atma a memory, to which Atma responds with, "That is what memories are for, to linger and to remind you of what you really are." We decide to leave Raya alone for a little while and end up sitting on a chair to pass some time. We wake up and there is now a wall blocking the stairs. To get rid of the wall, we have to solve a simple puzzle of matching parts of a picture with the frame that they came from. Doing so removed the wall, and we were able to go back upstairs to check on Raya. We return to Raya, who is still laying in her bed. She says that we can stay with her, so we decide to make small talk with her. Unfortunately, we're really bad at small talk, so it didn't really help that much. Raya asks if we hate being in this world that she created, but Atma responds, telling her that he loves it, but it feels artificial. Atma says he can see that her feelings in the world are real. For the people, the cats, and even the town, all of it's real. Raya claims that she is worthless and that we hate her, but Atma responds, saying that she can say that all she wants, but he will always be here to tell her that she's wrong. We ask Raya what she really wants, but she doesn't know, so we give her some more time to think it through. We head back downstairs and wait it out. We wake up from our nap in the void again. This time, to find Raya, we need to go through a series of doors that are each associated with a part of the fairy tale that she wrote. Each door is associated with a certain chapter, and we need to go through the doors in order of where in the fairy tale each quote is from. Doing so has us make it to the stairs to Raya's room. We enter Raya's room again, but she's not there. We go through the window and find her sitting on the roof alone. We talk to Raya for a little while she explains that she would look out from the roof and see everyone joyful and happy and wonder to herself, what makes them so happy? And why can they show content while she can't? Raya asks about what makes us happy and what makes us sad. Atma tells Raya that it's the little ordinary things that make life special, and life is special because of those small ordinary things that we get to see every day. Raya says that she created this world where she could be happy and where she doesn't have to worry about her bad grades or messy past. But deep down, she still isn't happy here, as she knows that it's made up of lies. Raya then says it's been a long time that she felt sure about herself, and the last time she felt that way was when she was with Nirmala. Raya asks us what we thought of Nirmala, and Atma replies by describing her as the best friend someone could ask for. We ask Raya what she thought of Nirmala, and she says that when she is around Nirmala, she feels that she is enough, just as she is. It was at this point in the game where I myself was starting to get emotional while reading this. There's just something so real about the dialogue here that hits home with me. Having someone in our lives who makes us feel important, that we are good enough just as we are, is something that is so important I can't properly put it into words. I feel like I can relate to Raya in multiple ways. Not every way, but in some ways. And that's what makes this part of the game really hit a soft spot of me. And I'm sure it's the same way with a lot of people. After talking with Raya on the rooftop, she says she wants to see Nirmala again, and that there is something she needs to say. Atma tells her that Nirmala is always waiting for her, and gives her the red storybook back. We then mysteriously appear on a stone pathway that ascends into the sky alongside Raya. This is when the waterworks really start coming while playing this game. We then walk with Raya along the pathway while asking her about what all she plans on doing when she returns to the real world, back to reality. She mentions things like completing the bucket list and trying out new foods. We then walk into a storm, a dark storm, and Atma visibly disappears, but tells Raya that he is right beside her. This is a really powerful moment in the game, as Raya must now face all of her fears on her own, with nobody holding her, and keep moving forward through it all. Personally, I love that message, that no matter what life throws at you, you must keep moving forward, even if you're scared and afraid. This part of the game not only shows a lot of the struggles that Raya has had, but it also serves as a bit of a recap for the story through Raya's perspective. From being bullied by Eric and him killing the Admiral, and being a scary beast who is secretly in love with her, Raya faces Eric, telling him that they may have a lot in common with each other, but that she doesn't want to spend her whole life battling with rage. When asked if she'll ever forgive him, Raya says, not yet, but that she will move on from it all. We move on to Lulu, which starts out by showing some girls talking about how Raya is the top of the class this year. It then shows Lulu taking over the Lintane Festival committee as president because Raya was doing a poor job and created a mess. Then going to Lulu saying that she never hated Raya, just that they didn't understand each other. Raya says to Lulu that she is done trying to be someone she isn't, and that she is going to try and be her best self, to which Lulu approves of and is very supportive of her. We are then met by Marin, as Raya remembers their old friendship and how Marin turned her back to Raya and abandoned her. Marin confesses to Raya that she is ashamed that she wasn't there when Raya needed her the most and apologizes. Raya says she knows Marin felt that way. Raya then apologizes to Marin also for taking out her jealousy on her and stating that they were so young, and despite knowing Marin felt bad, she wanted to punish her for turning her back on her, and that makes them even. When asked if they can start over and go back to how things used to be, Raya says that she will think about it and moves on. We then get to the part we all wanted to see, Raya confronting her father. Raya tries to confront her father at first, but ends up getting scared and backing off. She tries calling out to Atma and that she needs him, but someone else comes to her aid, her mother. Raya's mother tells her that she is her strength, and now she wants to be Raya's strength. They both want to get through their abusive father/husband together. Raya finally tells him off, saying that he is awful to her mother, and to everyone. She says that she will always move forward in life, even if it means leaving him behind. She says goodbye, and then he disappears. Raya then moves on to Admiral and Bosk, who she apologizes to for not taking good enough care of and protecting. They say that it's not her fault, and that it was their greatest honor to have shared that time with her, however brief. One thing that I'm wondering though, is how did Bosk die? I don't think it was ever explained in the game, unless I'm missing something. If you know, let me know down below. Raya finally makes it out of the dark tunnel and successfully faced her fears and trauma and made it to the other side. Atma reappears by her side and walks with her to the bridge where it all started. He then lets Raya take the lead and walk to Nirmala, making sure to follow close behind her. Raya and Nirmala reunite, and when asked by Nirmala how her journey was, Raya states that it was horrible and that she should have never left, and that it took a lot of time and pain to learn just how much that she needs Nirmala. Raya and Nirmala make up and explain how much they need each other before joining together and becoming whole again. Once they have joined together, Raya heads outside to meet with Atma. It is then that the final golden flower appears, and we get the ending of the Star Princess story. Atma tells Raya to make a new bucket list without him, and that it's time for them to move on. Raya says that she doesn't want to forget Atma, but Atma quickly reminds her that moving on is not the same as forgetting, even when Raya tells him that she's scared. But Atma reminds her that in every storm, you will find your sunrise. Everything starts to rise into the air, and it's time for Raya and Atma to say goodbye to each other. Raya floats away, back to reality, while Atma waves goodbye and fades away. Raya then wakes up in a hospital for some unexplained reason to be greeted by her mother, and that is how Chapter 5 ends. That was a very, very powerful chapter. There is something so powerful about seeing a character facing their fears and traumas and moving past them, even though it would be much easier to turn away from reality. I also really like the underlying message of this chapter, that people change over time. We are not the same person as an adult that we were as kids. It's important to move on. We don't have to forgive, but we need to move on in our lives. There is one final chapter in this game, Chapter 6. It is a very short chapter, so I'm just going to briefly mention it here. Chapter 6 starts off with Raya greeting her mother in their home. They're moving out and away from Raya's abusive father, and her mother is getting divorced. Raya decides to take a stroll to the bridge to get some air. It's here that you can say goodbye to all the people you encountered throughout this game. It seems that everyone is cool with Raya now, even Eric and Lulu. It seems that Raya has got her life in a much better place. She heads to the bridge, notices that it's going to rain, and asks Atma if he can see it. And as she asks that, the game credits begin to roll. And that is how A Space for the Unbound ends. This was a really, really good game, and I'm so happy that I downloaded it and just decided to play it on a whim. This game, I thought at first was just going to be just a regular like dating sim or a story about a high school romance, because that's kind of how it was advertised on Steam. But this game was so much more than that. And anybody who is like me and likes to play games for their stories, I highly, highly recommend you play this game. And if you know somebody who would enjoy this game, please recommend it to them. This game is so much better to experience raw for yourself, unspoiled. And I would now like to take this opportunity to give my final thoughts and review of this game. And I want to start with the pros of this game, because I feel like I always start with the cons of game, but I want to start off positive because this was a really positive game. First I've got 3 pros and 3 cons that I want to talk about. 3 great things and 3 not so great things about the game. The first great thing about the game is its story, hands down. You can tell just by playing this game that a lot of the passion for this game from the developers came through their belief in the story, through their desire to tell this story to people. And they did such an incredible job with it. It was such an emotional story. And it is the second game I have ever played that actually made me cry. Like, I actually cried playing this game. And the only other game that ever did that to me was Before Your Eyes. Before Your Eyes was the only other game to do that to me. And there's just something... I said this at the end of Before Your Eyes. There's just something so real about experiencing emotions like that while playing a game. I can't put it into words, and I don't think I will ever be able to put it into words. But the fact that this story was able to move me in such a way like this really speaks volumes to just how good of a job that the game developers did. The second thing I want to talk about that I thought was really good about this game was the music. I thought the music was really solid. It isn't like the best soundtrack that I've ever heard, but it is a really solid soundtrack that does the game and the story a lot of justice. And there are some real bangers in this soundtrack. And my favorite song from the game was the final song, Within the Dream. That's probably my favorite song in the whole game. It is so good. Yeah, really solid music that really fleshes out the story and really adds to it. It's really good. And the final pro that I have, or the final main pro that I have, because I don't want people to think that there's only 3 good things about this game. No. The third and final main pro that I have about this game is the graphics. I was a bit unsure of the graphics. That was one thing that I was doubting the game on, just because I'm usually skeptical of 2D pixel games. I don't know why. I can't think of a good reason why I'm that way, but I just was. But this game looked really good. It made that style work. And I didn't feel like the graphics were cheap or lazily made or anything. You can definitely tell that the artists in this game definitely put in a lot of work on this game. And it looks great. I never had one complaint about the game. I never had one time saying, oh, that looks weird or that doesn't look good. That kind of thing. The graphics looked great, and I feel like this game has changed my perceptions on 2D pixel games, and I look forward to trying more on in the future, knowing that I can appreciate it deep down. So now let's talk about the things that I did not like about this game. And keep in mind, I still think this game is incredible, and I'll get my final grade here in a minute, but there are some issues with this game that I have personally, and let me know if you agree with this or not. The first of 3 issues that I have with this game is that there's not enough Raya. And what I mean by that is you get a lot of Raya in the first chapter when you're like sneaking out of school and you're hanging out with her when everything goes wrong. I thought that this game was going to be you and Raya teaming up through the apocalypse when that first happened. But from chapters 2 through 4, 2, 3, and 4, Raya is just missing most of the time, and the whole chapters are spent just searching for her. And I know that we learn a lot about Raya through the interactions we get with Eric, Lulu, and Marin throughout these chapters, but I feel like Raya should have been more involved with the story than she was. Again, still an incredible story, but I feel like Raya should have been more involved. And I'm not saying the game was too short. I felt like it was a really solid length for the story. I felt like it was a really good length, but I feel like maybe chapter 6 should have been longer, or maybe have an extra chapter in there, or have Raya at least be more involved with the other chapters, something. I just wanted to see her more involved. Playing off of that, the next issue that I have with this game is and this is a minor issue. All right, it's just a minor issue. And that's the time skip at the end is confusing. Now, we do have a timeline, right? We can put 2 and 2 together to figure out when this happened. So Raya wakes up in the hospital, right? After she leaves Atma, right? And we go outside and you can tell that everybody's aged a little bit, but I'm just curious, how much time passed? Like, we know that it had to have happened sometime during or after her senior year, because we get that flashback with Marin of them talking about the senior consultation form. So we know that this happened after that. So sometime during her senior year or sometime after that. And another problem I have with this is it's just confusing, right? Like, you get out of the hospital and suddenly everyone's cool with Raya. Like, nobody's bullying her anymore. Things are looking up for her. She's doing good. She's turning things around. She's making a comeback. But it doesn't explain much. And a thought that I had while editing this video was maybe that's what the confrontations were when she's walking through the darkness with Atma, facing herself and having these conversations with people. I feel like maybe those were actual conversations that she had with people before she was put in the hospital for whatever reason, which is most likely to me, but the game never outright confirms that. But I feel like maybe that's what chapter 6 should have been. Like, chapter 6, you'd take over as Raya, and then you'd play through her as she turns her life around and she starts confronting people and making things right and coming to reality with herself, which she does alongside Atma and Nirmala, which I get that was all done very well, but I feel like there just should have been more. And again, this is playing off of my first complaint of there not being enough Raya. But again, that's just me. Let me know if you have any thoughts on this down below. And the last issue that I have with this game, and it's hands down my biggest issue with this game, and that it's the gameplay. The gameplay was so bad. It's just a series of very tedious fetch quests and running back and forth through the same small map over and over again, getting items. It was not fun. The boss fights also sucked. They were really bad. But I've accepted that this is a game that was focused around its story, which I pointed out in the beginning of this, and that is perfectly all right. I respect the hell out of this game. I love this game. But the gameplay definitely could have been shown a little more love. And if I was ever to recommend this game to somebody, I would tell them, if you don't mind poor gameplay or fetch quests, and you really enjoy a good story in a game, absolutely play this game. But just know that the story or the gameplay here is not great. In my opinion, it's worth it. I will be playing this game again in my own time. I want to get all the Steam achievements. Maybe I'll do that on the channel. I don't know. But the gameplay was bad. It was bad, and the boss fights were terrible. But that's all. That's all I've got. Thank you, everybody who watched the live streams, who watched these summary videos. I want to give a big thanks to Creeper King for tuning into every single live stream and staying for the whole thing. You're the MVP, man. You rule. Thanks for showing up at the live streams, man. Really appreciated. And that's all I've got. I don't know. Actually, no, I do know what's next. So I'm not going to be doing a summary series like this for the next game, but the next game that's going to hopefully at the time of releasing this video start within a week or two is going to be Persona 3 Reload. And those videos are going to be highlights of the live stream. So if you're wanting to tune in and watch me play through Persona 3 for the first time ever, because I've never played Persona 3, any of them before, so feel free to tune in live if that interests you. If not, feel free to stay for the highlights and summary videos, but I won't be making scripted summary videos like this for that. But that's all I've got. Thank you everybody again for watching. I love this game. I would give this game an overall grade of an 85. I'd give it an 85 out of 100. Maybe a 90. 85 to a 90. B plus A minus grade would be my rating of this game. And I highly recommend it to anybody who enjoys a game with a good story. And if you can look past the rough gameplay and the fetch quests and just enjoy the story, you will love this game. But with that being said, that's all I've got. Thank you everybody once again for watching, and until next time, bye for now.